Warm greetings and God bless us all. Thank you very much for tuning to the African Leadership Group, the Nigerian Leadership Series, into what I think is going to be a really, really exciting evening because we have somebody truly special that we're going to be talking to this evening, and we're going to be speaking on a few very germane and critical things at this point in time. Our guest speaker today is a lady that I have known, I don't know for how many years, through her Christian journey. I think maybe first from Jesus House, London, then Jesus House, Washington, D.C., then back to Nigeria, in and out of things, in and out of this and that, and then the Nigerian issue. And I got to meet her dad, and then here we are. Here we are today speaking on this very, very critical and germane subject. Our guest today serves as the executive director of Enough is Enough Nigeria, some organization that actually saw virtually the beginnings of a non-partisan network of individuals and organizations committed to building a culture of good governance and public accountability in Nigeria through active citizenship. She has 22 years career spanning the public and private sectors in the United States and also in Nigeria. She volunteers for her family NGO, Kaleyewa, meaning may we live long and may the evenings of our lives be wonderful and delightful. An NGO founded by her late mother that's focused on the elderly. In 2018, she was named as one of the most influential people of African descent. I think she must have come right next after me on that 2018. She's laughing. Name it, you claim it. Endorsed by the United Nations in humanitarian and religious categories. So one of the most influential people of African descent, endorsed by no less an organization than the United Nations, especially for humanitarian and religious services. She cares deeply about educating and empowering Nigerians to know their rights and responsibilities, as she believes that until we consistently hold our elected officials accountable, Nigeria will continue to be underdeveloped. And this summarizes one of her favorite quotes. Of all the institutions of a democratic society, there's none as formidable as an awakened and conscious citizenry. Shehu Sani, end of quote. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, please welcome with me Miss Yemi Adamolekun, who is going to be speaking with me tonight on NSAS and the state of the nation. NSAS and the state of the nation. Yemi, you are welcome, and it's really good to see you. Let me look at you very well.
Good evening, Mr. How are you?
I'm well. Long time. I'm not sure we've seen this year. Have we seen this year?
Mr. So how is that possible that we haven't seen this year?
Where did we see?
That's true. This year has been. Yes, we have seen this year.
I'm not sure. Where?
In your house.
When?
We've seen that. Ask Mr. Victor. That's why he's laughing. Mr. Victor knows we've seen this year.
It's been like a blur this year, I tell you.
It has been indeed. It has. You almost had me confused because I had to think about it again. That wait a minute, have I not? Yes, but we have.
Okay, we'll lose your witness out of the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses.
Exactly. Truth is established.
And the truth is established. Not so. But I won't trust Olu if I were you, shall.
Very good.
Yemi, you're most welcome. I know your passion for Nigeria. We've shared that passion before. I know you've tried to pull me here, pull me there, get me here, get me there. I know we've worked together with Church for Change, and we've worked together many roads here and there, and so on and so forth. And I want to thank you, first of all, for your commitment, your love, and your passion for Nigeria, a real chip of the old block. And just to ask a few questions, okay? We're talking about NSAS and the state of the nation. So let me take it from the back. What is the state of our nation from your perspective?
Wow. I think I would say that this Nigerian state, or the state of Nigeria, is probably best summarized by the many calls for the country to be restructured and the constitution to be rewritten. I think underlying that is a lot of discontent, a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, a lot of helplessness. I mean, there's a phrase that we call it conditioned helplessness, that you get battered so many times in so many ways that your default is just to think that things cannot get better and you're tired. And also, I guess to layer on that as well is the fact that a lot of young people are looking for other opportunities. People joke that Canada is the Nigeria annex, as people find their way to Canada or any country really that will provide them opportunities. So I think in those elements, you see, in a sense, let me say a part of the state of the nation. But I also think in the NSAS movement, you also see another part of the state of the nation, which is people, a huge desire for change, a huge desire for something to happen that triggers something. But at the end of it, people just want things to change and are willing to, I mean, if you look at 150 million odd raised through the Feminist Coalition, not to talk of monies that came through organizations like mine or individuals who of their own free will donated. Easily, I would estimate probably over 200 million naira was donated or spent in one way or another on the NSAS protest. So people's willingness to give freely in a short period of time to allow or enable young Nigerians, or Nigerians really, to express themselves, for me also speaks to another part of the state of the nation. But I think also on the back of that is what I would then consider the third part. So the first part is people's frustrations with the status quo. The second part is what NSAS signified for a lot of people in terms of that something could possibly happen and the excitement around that and the willing to fund that. And then on the back of that, after NSAS, a bit going back to the first segment of hopelessness, frustration. But also I think, for me, unfortunately, people not realize the fact that whatever it is that we want out of Nigeria is hard work. So it's not on the back of a 3-week protest. It's not on the back of angry, young and old Nigerians, but it's hard work to build. And I'm not sure that we have fully come to terms with the fact that we need to do that work. So yeah, that's how I'd summarize the state of the nation.
Okay, how did Nigeria get here to this state where people are frustrated, people are discontented, a lot of people feel helpless? I see that helplessness all around me, even from people who are comfortable, who are well qualified, who are what you call the upper echelon of Nigerian society. They feel totally helpless when I talk to them, and so on and so forth. How did Nigeria get here from your own perspective? I know you were not born before independence, but okay, but I'm sure you've seen enough of Nigeria to understand some of our trajectory. How could a nation that seemed to have so much potential ahead of Malaysia, ahead of China, ahead of Singapore, ahead of Ghana, ahead of many nations in the 60s, now come to a place where our Naira is so badly battered and we're really feeling that there's nothing we can do? And why is it that we get that feeling that there's nothing we can do? I want to hear your perspective.
I think how we got here is the same reason, in my opinion, that we stay here. That quote and unquote people who, because look, I think ultimately, I mean, this is a leadership series. And as you well know, leadership is about service. So ultimately, the people who want to serve Nigeria and Nigerians stay out of government and politics because, I don't know, for whatever reason. We talk from a religious angle, politics is dirty. We're busy making money and running the private sector. Politics is for however way we describe it. We've stayed out of the space that influences our lives. I say this all the time. President Muhammadu Buhari will probably speak this year to this country as in State of the Nation address. He will do June 12. He will do October 1. He will do maybe May 29, handle whatever, May 1, Workers' Day. But if you count all of his engagements with the country, he will probably speak maximum 10 times. Somebody can listen to their pastor speak in 1 week 10 times. So in other places where we have influence, that we can influence the way people speak, and these are the ways that people's minds, their values, what they believe, and how they engage are shaped. We don't, and we stay out of the place of policy for whatever reason. And those are the things that eventually, invariably affect our lives. So we got here by staying out of the space. So because we've come out of that space of shaping how we live, we've left the space for people who don't particularly care to serve, where the Commonwealth is not pre-managed in the interest of the common good, so to speak. And unfortunately, in a way, we're still there because we're still having the conversations of, oh, I don't want to go into politics, or church and politics don't mix, or this or that or the other. We got to where we are by staying out, and we will keep being where we are if we continue to stay out.
We, meaning people who know better.
And who want
to, sorry?
They not only better, but also want to do better. Because you can know better and decide you want to do rubbish.
Yeah. And people who know and want to do better. So what, your own opinion, do you think a lot of people should now be doing in an attempt to try to correct this situation that we're in? What do you think? We're speaking to Alero last week. And she gave us something very clean, very fresh, very opinion, workable to some extent. What, in your own opinion, do you think people should do it at this point in time to try and correct this imbalance and this poor foundation?
I'm actually quite excited that I'm following Auntie Alero. Fix Politics is a platform that I'm a part of. And the truth of the matter is, what Auntie Obi was able to do is articulate what we've always, I would say, known intuitively, and sort of put it in a framework that's evidence-backed, that's research-backed. So after she ran for office last year, she went, for those who didn't watch last week or aren't aware, Fix Politics is a platform that she has convened, in a sense, after she ran for president last year, sort of went on a fellowship to reflect on her journey. And really and the question was, what do we need to fix politics in Nigeria and on the continent? And she came up with a tripod of sort of 3 elements of it that we all need to engage in. Number 1 is an empowered electorate. Citizens just need to care. Citizens need to understand their rights and responsibilities. Citizens need to understand how government works, how the fact that the gutter in front of your house is the responsibility of your local government chairman, not Buhari, and then find out who your local government chairman is and hold that person accountable. Why citizens need to participate in the electoral process, i.e. get registered and go and vote across the socioeconomic strata, not just certain people, and ensure that we move our participation beyond 30% voter turnout that we had. I mean, elections that we had in Lagos, in some parts of the country actually on Saturday, had voter turnout as low as 5%. And these are people that would then make policies that affect our lives, and we wonder why we're where we are. So one part of it is an empowered electorate who understand the dynamics and who are not only empowered with political education, but empowered in a way that they also have economic empowerment that allows you to make certain choices. Because if the total value of what you sell or what you take home a day is 500 naira, the person that offers you 2,000 naira is Lord and Master, and we need to change that dynamic. The second bit of it, and that in a sense is what we call the demand side of governance. The other side of it is the supply side of governance. And that is training a new caliber of leaders who want to serve, who understand the dynamics of political economy, who understand what servant leadership is about, and who want to put themselves forward to serve. And Fixed Politics in that regard has a really fantastic program in actually setting up a school of policy and governance. And the idea, I believe, is to graduate 500 people in each batch, do 6 batches a year. So you're literally graduating 3,000 leaders every year to sort of fill in the gaps that we currently have. And then the third part is what she calls the referee, or there's a word for it. It escapes me at the moment, but basically the people who manage the process. So that's where you have your constitution and you have your electoral act or electoral management body. That if we pay attention to those 3 nodes of this triangle, that our governance or political outcomes will be quite different. So in terms of what people can do, one is especially very heavy on the part of demand side of it. And the organization that I lead, that's what we focused on the last 10 years, is really just getting citizens to understand that ultimately you cannot hire people to work, which is, if we think about it that way, everybody that holds political and appointed office in Nigeria was hired to do a job. First, you put yourself forward that vote for me, I want to be your senator. Nobody put a gun to your head. So having then been elected and you are in office, you should be afraid to hold them accountable.
Please mute your mics. Abari, Jimmy Johnson, the Abari family, please mute your mics. Thank you.
Thank you. So we shouldn't be afraid to hold them accountable because they offered themselves for service. And in that regard, you are my employee. And so because you are my employee, I should be able to ask you questions and hold you accountable. And citizens need to understand. So the power dynamic needs to shift. And we see it in the way that we speak to people who are in positions of political, honorable, your excellency. There's a deference that comes with that. Now, this is not to say they should not be respected or their office should not be respected, because it should be, but they are still public servants, i.e. you work for me. So I should be able to ask you questions about how you are holding what you have in trust, how you're managing it. So that power dynamic needs to shift in terms of how citizens engage the people that engage, that serve them. And we see that both on the part, I dare say, on the part of citizens and on the part of people in government, we don't fully understand what that means. I remember the first time I called my senator, for example, he didn't understand why I was calling him. He asked me if I belonged to APC. I said no. He asked me if I was a journalist. I said no. He asked me, I think maybe he asked me if I was his family, or basically just didn't understand why I was calling him. So he was like, so what do you want? And I was like, well, I live in your constituency. I just wanted to find out how you voted on this particular bill. And then he goes off on a shouting match. How dare you call me to ask me how I voted? And I'm like, Baba, calm down. It's not that serious. I'm just calling to have a conversation because you represent me and I just want to know how you voted. I mean, and then we went on to have a pretty civil conversation. And after that, whenever I called him, first thing out of his mouth, my sister, how are you? And then we have a conversation. But I realized that in a sense, really, nobody probably had ever called him and asked him a question around, you are my senator sitting in Abuja. I want to know what you're doing for me. And so it's on both sides. So yeah, I would heavy focus on citizens being active, engaging. For those who want to run for office, please think about it. We need a lot more people, not only who know better, but who also want to do better.
Okay, there have been calls for the restructuring of Nigeria all over the place, and the drumbeats is getting very much louder. What's your own understanding of this issue about restructuring? And do you have an opinion and a position on the matter at this point in time?
Interesting. As someone says, at the heart of it, restructuring means different things to different people. For me, restructuring is just a reflection of the fact that we do not believe that Nigeria is fair to everybody. That, as my dear friend and sister Aisha Yusufu would say, that no Nigerian should be more Nigerian than any other. And we see that in so many instances, from recruitment, even though we have a federal character commission, to how government responds to issues in certain parts of the country, to the face of leadership that we see in certain parts. I mean, for example, the NAPTIP DG was changed recently. Her term hadn't finished, and sort of a series of changes in terms of positions that are changed to favor the North. Now, for whatever reason that is, that breeds discontent, and people feel that this Nigeria doesn't favor me. You have people in the Southwest who are pushing the Duduwa Republic. my father is in that camp. Yeah, I mean, I guess context for them is my father is a true Awoist. He has no apologies for being a follower of Obafemi Awolowo and believing that under Awolowo, the Western region was able to deliver on social services, on certain promises. So that if as a nation we're not able to deliver on these things, then maybe we should try a regional system that allows independence. So everybody, you face your region and develop your region. Biafra people, I mean, people have very different opinions about Biafra. Some people want to go, even if they are 10. Some people do talk about it for political reasons. But the underlying fact is that people don't believe that there's equity in the nation Nigeria. And then parallel to a call for restructuring is also a call that we need a new constitution. And again, that's where that cry is from. The constitution, for the way it's structured, it's worded, how it's skewed in different areas, also doesn't speak to equity in the nation. And for me, I believe we could actually merge both of them and have a process that, and also people who talk about the fact that the constitution starts with we the people, but it wasn't really we the people. The military needed to hand over a document. It was done in a hurry. Some counter that and say, well, the 1999 constitution is basically 1979 cut and paste. And 1979 did have a bit more of an elaborate process of engagement. But regardless of what the techniques and the technicality of it is, ultimately people don't feel that the constitution reflects their wishes and desires as Nigerians. And I think probably putting all that together is the fact that a lot of Nigerians don't even know what's inside the constitution. And as a nation, we haven't made that priority in educating people. It's like saying you want someone to be a Christian and you don't teach the Bible, or you want them to be a good Muslim and they don't know what the Quran says. So how do you expect people to understand what it means to be Nigerian or what Nigerian says about them if we actually, as a people, don't prioritize teaching the constitution? So we can take the process of crafting a new constitution, plus the calls for restructuring, and merge it into one. So we create and birth a new document that's reflective of the Nigeria that we want to see, in the structure that we want to see, that ensures that every Nigerian is like no Nigerian is more Nigerian than the other.
Well, there's been a lot of cry over the years for constitutional reform. We had Oke Anyalegu come here the other day and say he was part of a constitutional drafting committee set up by Goodluck Jonathan in 2014, and they brought out quite a hefty document, blah, 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 and nothing happened to that document. Also, a lot of cry for restructuring here and there, successive governments here and there. Even it is reputed that the APC, one of their campaign promises was that there will be restructuring, and some look at the constitution. And this is almost 6 years down the line. They've not really even paid it any attention at all. Why do you think successive governments and even the government in power right now they seem not to pay sufficient attention, or even if they do, it looks like an exercise in futility? Somebody was saying that there should be another confab. One of the headlines I saw today was that another waste of time, waste of money. What do you think the problem is? Are they not Nigerians also who want the best for Nigeria?
I would say with the challenges that we've seen, political will. So as you're right, 2014 was actually a confab, and the reports that people spoke quite highly of. In the transition committee into 2015, the confab was part of the document in terms of the recommendations that was presented to this administration. If I remember correctly, I was listening to Dr. Joe Abba on a webinar yesterday. He said he was in a meeting where the confab was raised with President Buhari, to which he replied that he doesn't plan to do anything with it because at the time the confab was done, he had some excuse for what some mitigating circumstances when the confab was done. And so that he doesn't plan to do anything with it. And he was asked that, fine, if you don't like that one, why don't you do your own? And to your point, I quite agree that it is another waste of time and waste of money. The National Assembly as well, I think it's either every 4 years or every year, seem to go through a round of constitutional reform, and they're doing that again now. And I mean, again, part of it is we get away, or political leadership gets away with what it gets away because citizens let them get away with it. And I fundamentally believe that. I fundamentally believe that we've seen it when there is pushback. When there is enough pushback, government would respond. But if you think, the analogy I love to use is, I'm sure there are people on the call who are employers of labor, who run businesses. So on Monday, your employee shows up at work at 11 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, they say they're leaving and they go home. On Tuesday, they don't show up at all. They don't call, don't give any notice, nothing. On Wednesday, they come maybe about noon, but at 4 o'clock, they leave because there's midweek program. On Thursday, they come, maybe they do a 9 to 5, they put in the hours. On Friday, is either they leave for Jumat's prayers or Winners or Redeem is doing something and they have to run off. Now, they do this Monday to Friday. They don't get a query. Nobody speaks to them. Nobody asks, how are you? What is going on? Why are you behaving like this? No conversation. At the end of the month, their salary is complete. Not one kobo is missing. They do this in January, nothing. February.
Is that your company, by the way? Can I apply?
You can't try that in my office. You can't. We will have a conversation.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. Please go ahead.
No problem at all. You do that from January to December, and your salary is complete. I dare say with everybody on this call, we know that there is no way you will do that for money that you are working hard to use to pay salaries. But if you also, for whatever reason, maybe money is flowing in your company, you do that, you can't then say that the employee is being irresponsible because you have not corrected the employee, you've not challenged the employee, you've not queried the employee, you've not found out what was wrong, because this was not our terms of engagement. This is not why I hired you. So if we parallel it to government officials, if they get away with doing things and there's no pushback and nobody is asking them questions, I dare say we really will get what they give. I've heard Rotimi Amechi talk about it, that maybe when citizens that start throwing tomatoes and pure water sachets at them, that maybe they, and he's speaking as himself as a government official, they will start paying attention. But he says, we enter buildings, you will stand up, you will clap, you will open, you would make a way for us to walk through into venues. And we've lost any sense of shame. You can, I mean, today we just saw another government official, Mena, who collapsed in court. So you're either collapsing or you have a brace around your neck or your arm is broken or you are doing National Assembly off the mic. So if we continue to make mockery of things like that and people get away with it, we get what we get. So back to the more important thing. And I think for me, this is where the National Assembly becomes extremely important. I mean, President Buhari is one president over the country. We have 36 state governors, but we have 469 National Assembly members. There are 3 senators in every state. And depending on the size of your state, you have, 20 to 30 House of Assembly members. Every one of them represents one of us. And I dare say, I mean, the day I told Femi Gbajabiamila, who represents Surulere, who's now Speaker of the House, he was making fun of me. And he said, oh, that you guys, when you come to the National Assembly, we're watching you from the windows. When you people are tired, Chibi, you will go home. I said, don't worry. The day will come when we will not come to Abuja, we will come to your house and we will camp in front of your house in Surulere. When your wife is unable to come out, we will then have a conversation, because you can't make light of what stresses people out for whatever reason it is that you think it's acceptable. And I'd love the expression on Mr. Gbajabiamila's face that day. It was priceless. If he was light-skinned, he would be blushing. Because he just looked at me and said, Yemi, why would you do that? No, it's not that serious. I said, oh no, it's going to get there. That will be that serious. Because the people we elect into office need to understand that they're there in trust for us. So it's not about why are they not doing it. The 469 National Assembly members are not any they. They are our they. So if I am holding my senator accountable and his constituent, and he's feeling heat from his constituency, when he gets to the National Assembly, he will have a different tone because he needs to come home and speak. One of my favorite examples that's not related, in Ondo State, constitutional amendment a couple of years ago, and they were voting about child marriage, if you could get married if you're under 16, I believe. A senator from Ondo State voted in favor of it. His constituents called him back home in Ondo and said, sir, we understand you voted in favor of this. Please explain yourself. He prostrated and was begging. Either he said he was sleeping or didn't pay attention, that's not what he meant to do, something. I'm not sure he was returned the next election, but that's really what this should be about. They should understand that they're there to represent. That's why it's called representatives. And for me, I think that's why we're not able to move forward in these things that we want. Because discordant voices, different people are saying different things, people want different things. But if we're able to harness what it is that we want our representatives to do, and there's a majority that's speaking in a certain way, their job is to represent us.
Thank you very much, Yemi. Let's now look at this issue of NSAS and what we've been through this last few months. What's your feeling about NSAS? What led to NSAS? What do you think about how the young people ran that particular protest? And what's your opinion on the outcomes? Let me stop there, because the next question I'll ask is, what next? Should we do, or should they do, or do we expect? But really, what's your thinking about NSAS? How do you think that protest was run? And what do you think about what happened at the end of the day? And how has it left Nigeria in a better place, or not such a good place? Or did we make progress, or did we retrogress, and so on and so forth? If you can give us a clear and crisp opinion of that particular thing, because even a few people still don't even understand all this NSAS thing. They don't understand. There are different voices from all over the place. There's some people from the north who call it a terrorist attack, and they want to pull down the government of Muhammadu Buhari. Some people from the south are wondering what is going on. All we want is mass free Biafra tomorrow. Some people say the lazy youth finally found work to do. What really is the situation with NSAS?
I like that one. Lazy youth finally found work. Lazy youth are finally sorosogein, as they say. So, I mean, sort of historical context. SARS, a unit of the police that are notorious for killing, maiming, armed robbery, really. Sort of extorting money, that's the word I was looking for, from citizens. Particular focus on young people and profiling. So you have dreadlocks, you are carrying a laptop, you have a fancy car, you have a fancy phone. And I think about 3 years ago was the first NSAS protest, if I'm not mistaken. Much smaller, but just raising awareness. And over the last 3 years, there have been quite a number of issues, especially on social media, around the Special Anti-Robbery Squad. And also over the last 5 years, the federal government has done different things to SARS. They've disbanded it, they've reorganized it, I don't even know, they've done every year, there's almost something. So this year, as I understand the story, a young man in Delta State, Ugeli, was shot by operatives believed to be SARS, and the young man was believed to have died. And that triggered off a series of protests. For me, this is sort of the context that makes this divine, because 1, the young man did not die, and 2, the people that shot him were not SARS. But because that was the perception and that was what was communicated, it just literally reignited a fire and people got upset. Then layered on that is the call by people like Yele Sowore. Burna Boy was invited to lead a protest. Naira Marley, who has an army of Malians, young and old, got involved. He wanted to lead a protest. The police quickly realized that it would be quite disastrous if Naira Marley led a protest just because of the army of people that follow him. They had an Instagram live conversation where they promised something will happen within a week. Naira Marley stepped down his protest and said he'll give government 1 week. However, the cat was out of the bag. It really didn't matter what Burna Boy was saying or what Naira Marley was saying. Young Nigerians were just tired. And the protest went ahead. You had Femi Falana's son, Folari, and a few other artists who went ahead with the protest on a Thursday. Yele Sowore and some other people planned a 3-day protest. Renu, Odula, and Mr. Macaroni also in Lagos. So people in Lagos literally just went ahead with what they wanted. So it didn't matter what influencers or people with voice that you would think could shape the conversation we're saying online, they just went ahead with it. Now, what was fascinating with NSAS that a lot of people still don't believe was that there was nobody sitting in any room coordinating what, when, how. The protests were genuinely organic. People just found communities in their areas and they protested what was important to them. For someone like me that I've organized different protests over the last 10 years, it was absolutely fantastic to watch because unlike when you say protest for against corruption or maybe, I don't know, elections or whatever it is, there was something about SARS and police brutality that resonated very deeply with people. Because there's a very different emotion that comes in when you've looked down the barrel of a gun and someone tells you, I will kill you and nothing will happen. So because of that, there was an emotional connection that also transited socioeconomic class. You had someone like Mrs. Omobola Johnson who tweeted about the fact that her son was accosted by SARS in front of their house. You have across religious lines, socioeconomic status, so different people not only had a police brutality story, you would know someone that had experienced it. And so because of that, from Lagos to Abuja, I think 24 states at the end of it had an NSAS protest. And you had things for me that really made me excited when you had the governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, saying that protests are not allowed in his state, no more NSAS protests. And people came out en masse in Port Harcourt the following day. And I think one of the videos that I saw that was so exciting was like, Wike, we dey come, Wike, we dey come. Basically just saying that, no, you can't tell us we can't protest. We will exercise our rights to protest. We're not being violent, no, none of that. Now, what is also very interesting is that nobody till today has said that people who were in the sort of focal areas of Lekki Tollgate or Alausa were violent. They were not violent at all. And no government official has said that. But they frame it and saying that it was hijacked and turned violent. It was hijacked. I don't believe it was, I don't use the phrase that it was hijacked. The protesters were not violent, but you allowed people who meant evil to come to the protest ground and then do violent acts. Tuesday was the Lekki massacre. As of Monday, around Lagos, people were already setting up barricades and collecting money to let people pass. Police watched it and did nothing. Military people that were already in Lagos or in Lagos already watched it happen and did nothing. So you can't then wake up and say that the protests turned violent. We have video footage from places in Abuja where you saw thugs on top of police trucks. I don't know what thugs are doing on police trucks or when they're suddenly police personnel. They were not being arrested. They were using the police trucks as a vehicle for movement. The footage of young boys who were discussing with a police officer. There are young boys that were caught who had tried to scatter a protest, who were told that they were paid as little as 1,005 naira to cause harm. So the narrative about the fact that the protests were hijacked is falsehood because they were deliberate attempts paid by people affiliated with the state and not or supporters of the state to cause havoc. And when that happens and the security apparatus of the country then step back and in a sense fold their arms and watch it happen, then they should be held responsible for that, not framed as the protests went violent. People have often asked that the government accepted the 5 for 5. Why did the protests continue? And I think people need to understand that if you come from the context of the fact that people have been brutalized and psychologically damaged, I would say, or psychologically harmed by police brutality and the response of the state over the years, their response shouldn't be surprising. As I said, over the last 5 years, the government has done something almost every year. This year again, on the same day that the IG of police announced that he was dissolving SARS, in Abuja, the police shot at, waterbombed, and tear-gassed peaceful protesters. How do you do that how do you dissolve SARS in one vein and then respond with that on the other vein, and you expect young people to trust you? So the conversation throughout that thing was always that it's not an issue of let's negotiate. There was nothing to negotiate. All young people were asking for is let us, as they said it, let us see your workings. What are you doing? Your posture, your language, your actions does not reflect an entity that wants to that recognizes there's a problem and wants to solve it. What your posture communicates is that you want this problem to go away. And if you look at it, the 505 demands of young people included police welfare, because we're also not, it's not that we're not mindful, whatever the English is. We are mindful that the police are also receiving the short end of the stick, from where they live to the salaries that they get, to the training that they get. So that was also a demand. Ensure that they have proper conditions of service, but hold them accountable to their actions. Our teachers don't get paid well. Our doctors don't get paid well, but they don't go around jabbing people during surgery to kill them to make a point. The same way police go about killing people. Is that why you take a life? So I think those are the different elements, I believe. I was just trying to think of what kind of questions people also ask. And then this whole leadership question. As I said, there wasn't anybody anywhere coordinating things. The Feminist Coalition sort of stepped in and volunteered their platform to collect money, but there were many others across the country that collected money, dispersed things, either directly or with cash. But each location had a leadership team. Those who are in Alausa, I live in Lagos, so Alausa is behind my house, and that's where I went. There was a leadership team. There was a place where there were drinks. There were people in charge of sound. On the day that I was there, there were private bodyguards just to make sure people could sense if anybody tried to come in and cause trouble. Lekki Tollgate, as a lot of people have seen, was incredibly well organized. Some people went there just to go and eat. As in, if you go to Lekki, you are guaranteed you will eat, even if you're not interested in NSAS or can't be bothered. But at least there's community, there's music, there's food. At some point, a pool table showed up. And people started saying they're deviating. And I said, look, if I'm going to camp here for a day and continue to reiterate a message and get people educated, it doesn't hurt to keep people engaged as well and keep them busy if we are camping in front of Lekki Toll. People talk about the fact that people, Lekki Toll blocked traffic. So people who wanted to travel, people who might need to go to the hospitals. One of the things that we made very clear was that Lekki Toll can be shut down, but Lekki Ikoyi must be kept open. So at least people could pass through there. And eventually government also even lifted the barrier, so it was free. Look, in these things, sometimes there will be inconvenience. You can't be saying protest, but don't inconvenience. We will all be inconvenienced until all of us realize that ultimately we need to make sure this country works. So my point was that in every location, there was a leadership structure that ensured things work well, but there wasn't a central leadership. And so when the whole conversation about negotiate with the government, and my constant question when people called me and said, oh, we need to get these young people to negotiate, my question is always, negotiate what? If government said, yes, the police is a problem, we recognize that. We will ban SARS, we will give them training. This is the timeline. In 3 months, we will do this, we'll set up these judicial panels, blah, 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 blah. It's because people kept on the streets that the goalpost of what government was willing to do kept moving. If after government had banned SARS, everybody would be like, wonderful, victory, hallelujah. There will be no judicial panels that's sitting currently in 29 states and the FCT. They would not exist because there will be no reason for them to exist. They exist because the protest continued. So I think people just need to understand the dynamics of power. Now, the transition from that, let me leave it at that.
Why are you leaving it at that? We're enjoying you. Don't dodge out. But I guess you think it's a good place to pause. No problem at all. No problem at all. I think that's a very, very clean and crisp narrative of what happened, and I myself got quite a bit of knowledge and information from what you have said. But you know, one of the challenges though is that when government is used to doing things in a certain way, when labor wants to protest, they call their leaders, they sit them around the table, they begin to discuss. When ASU is protesting, they do the same thing. When students in the university campus are doing the same thing. So this really caught government flat-footed that, okay, we've made an announcement, okay? Accept our announcement, and then you people come and sit with us and let us trash out the announcement that we have made and this and that. You can't just get us to continue to begin to unbundle things here, there, everywhere, sack the IG, shut the police station, ban SARS and this and that, when we don't even know how far you want us to go and what your roadmap is. And I think some of the young people should really have understood that to some extent, that at some stage they should have come, even if it's the leadership in Lekki or the leadership in Tollgate or the leadership in Abuja or the leadership somewhere, and sat round to discuss, because that is what government is used to. You know, government is not used to acting on certain things on its own initiative. It's used to discussing, meetings upon meetings upon meetings,
Committee upon committee.
committee upon committee. Everything is a committee. Everything is a judicial panel. Everything is the panel on this and that and that, and minutes of meetings all over the place. Some not implementable, some just an exercise in futility, but the committee has been set up. So what next, my dear? What next now? We've done the answers. The police have come, all sorts of denials here and there. All I know is that people died at that Lekki toll gate. Nobody can tell me that nobody died there. If the bullets came from heaven, I don't know, but definitely people died, and we saw policemen with guns at that place. If they shot in the air and it came from the air and hit people, I saw people die. I saw people with broken bones here and there. But what next? Very, very painful. My heart really goes out to those parents and those relatives of those people. They remain in our memory and in our prayers. I do know, of course, that some military people or police people also lost somebody or the other, or got themselves damaged here and there. Our hearts goes out to them. Nobody should have lost their lives on what was a simple expression of opinion by young citizens of Nigeria. Nobody should have lost their lives because of that. I think it was not appropriate at all. But Yemi, what next? This has happened. The panels are going on. First of all, what do you think the outcomes of those panels will be? And what do you think government will now do? Will it bring comfort or solace anywhere? Will it bring any solutions? Or is it yet again another big panel report that will be put another on archive of history for somebody to do a research on in 20 years' time? And after that, what next? What should the young people do? What should Nigerians expect? Did these young people just do this protest in vain? Did those people lose their lives in vain? What next?
Thank you. I'll start where you left off, that government is used to engaging in a certain way. And I think it's very interesting because the young people were also very determined not to engage in that way. Because to your point, they've seen it not yield results. So they wanted desperately a different type of engagement that sort of acknowledged that we realize that there's a problem. And I think for me, it also speaks to the dynamics of the Nigerian state. We say we're in a democracy, and with a democracy, there are certain terms of engagement. If you're playing a game, there are rules of the game. So a democracy has rules of the game. Rule of law is one of them. And this government hasn't particularly been a poster child for the rule of law. And in light of that as well, in a democracy, you don't send military to engage unarmed civilians. It's not done. So part of the posturing of young people was also almost a sense of invisibility. I can guarantee that majority of the young people in their wildest imaginations would never have thought that the Nigerian state can send military men that would shoot and invariably kill people. I see some comments that people say there was no Lekki massacre. I really beg to disagree. Now, when people in their minds, when they think massacre, they think maybe like, oh, 1,000 people died. Massacre, according to I had to actually good definition. It says brutal slaughtering of people. So if 10 people died, or 20 people died, or 30 people died, it's a massacre. Are there bodies? I believe Arise News has spoken to it. Premium Times has written about it, and I think the CNN report speaks to people who have died. People, I think, was it 2 days ago or so, at the Lagos Judicial Panel, a bus of people who were injured, someone whose leg had been amputated, someone who had a bullet wound, came to tell their story to the panel. So let's see what the panels have to say. But I think it's extremely important, and I will say this here, that as citizens, we must also be very clear about the state in which we operate. The army's first reaction after that Lekki massacre was to say they were not there. They tweeted it, called it fake news, and they said they were not there. Then they said, well, we were there, but we only shot blank bullets. Then it became, we were there and we had both blank and live. Then they refused to speak to CNN, but our Minister of Information tried to debunk what they had to say. And my challenge to people is that why are we so quick to believe government when a lot of people watch this thing on Instagram Live? It's not they told me, Yemi Adamolekun, watch that thing that night on Instagram Live. And I was calling, I'm surprised I didn't call you Pastor Itwa. I was calling everybody that night, like, as in, what am I seeing? What is happening? What is going on? I watched it.
Surprised you didn't call me too, because
I'm serious. Pastor knows. When it comes to Nigeria and I'm traumatized, I call him. Pastor Itwa,
yeah, what is going on here? I know. That's
why
I'm saying I haven't seen you this year. Anyway, let's go on.
So to try to get citizens to doubt what they watched in real time, it's not a recording from yesterday that someone brought. It is people were watching it live. So the fact that government lied about the opposition initially, until today, nobody has addressed that. The fact that when the president decided 48 hours later that he was going to address the nation, he did not mention it. And they then he didn't mention it because he was still receiving information. How are you receiving information about something of that scope 48 hours later? So please, let's make no mistake. Let's make no mistake about it, especially because it seeks to deny what citizens saw with their eyes. And you're telling me it did not happen. Of course it happened. The degree of it, who ordered it, to what scale, how many people, I don't know. Even in Lagos State, anybody that has contacts, I dare the governor and even the Minister of Health, they were putting pressure on hospitals. Hospitals themselves have said it. So for us to be having this conversation about what did or what did not happen, I'm sorry. I get very, because for me, I just picture it that way. You are telling people who watch something live that what they saw did not happen, while the same government whose first answer to it was, we were not there. So how am I going to believe you? Like, the onus is on you to prove beyond a reasonable doubt what happened, not for me to give you the benefit of the doubt, because by no means does this administration on this Lekki massacre deserve the benefit of the doubt in any way, shape, or form. Having said that, what was also clear was, because the terms of engagement were not clear for young people, there was also this very sense of, I don't even know what it was, I guess juvenile exuberance, that we are the first ones to do this. Our parents' generation did not do anything. They did this, they were not this, they were not that. There's nothing, for anybody who has followed Nigerian history, there's nothing about that trajectory of what happened at the protest that's new. You protest, government watches you for a while, they cannot allow the country to go into anarchy, and they send army. The sequence of events is quite clear. But for a lot of young people, again, part of us not teaching about our constitution, not teaching our history, a lot of young people, June 12th doesn't mean anything to them. And they kind of remember Occupy somehow, the Ali Must Go protest, and many other sort of historical pieces are missing in their understanding of Nigeria. So I believe they got quite excited about what they thought they were the only ones to have done. They were the first ones to have done it. But the same thing, and I think that it's funny, but also not funny. Because the very thing that they accuse the older generation of doing, i.e. when government comes, you back up or back off, is exactly what has happened. Military came, shot people, which they do, and protests have ended, at least for now. Protests will come back and it will show up in other ways, but that same sequence is type to form. But the key then is, what do we learn and where do we go from here? I think for a lot of young people, they're now reflecting on what this means and what they want to do and how they want to engage. For a lot of them, they were just exercising their rights as citizens. They then plan to do much more than that. But now they have to think about, excuse me, organizing. There's some organizing around a youth political party. There's some who are thinking of running for office. And that is the journey and the work that then needs to be done. On the panels of inquiry, again, comes back to citizens. The way the panels are set up, they receive the petitions, make recommendations to the state governor, and then the governor would then determine what to do. In Lagos State, for example, we've seen the governor give out 10 million naira checks to families of police officers that were killed. So I believe that he will do right by citizens when it comes to civilians. I mean, they have a much longer process. There was no panel for the police. They've already gotten their money. People who are going in front of the judicial panel have to go through a process until it's then determined if they are owed money. But one of the things that we found, because we're tracking the panels, is that quite a number of people are coming to those panels to present cases that they've taken to court against the police. Judgment was awarded in their favor, but the police has not paid 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So for me, these are the types of things that the IG of police, for example, could have done to show good faith that we recognize that there's a problem. And so some of these things, we will ensure that they happen. People who have actually won judgments against the state, we will pay them their compensation. We saw last week, I mean, this is another example. The police went to court to say they want to stop the judicial panels. Then the IG of police say, oh, how? I was not aware. I don't believe the IG of police that he was not aware, because nobody will suddenly wake up in the police department, decide they are going to court and not tell the IG. But what I do commend the IG for is that immediately he found out, he put in a motion, he filed a motion to withdraw the suit, and we're waiting for that. We're waiting for that to be done. What else did I write down? Elections are a big thing. So moving forward, organizing. One of the favorite slogans of the socialist movement is stop agonizing and start organizing. We must. I mean, this thing is a lot of work. Religious institutions have a huge role to play. I have cried that to Pastor Ito's ears till even me, I'm tired. I'm sure he's tired of hearing me say it. But religious institutions have a huge role to play in political education. And this is not about campaigning for one person or another. I keep saying this. If we use the platform of religious institutions to teach about what people need to look out for when they're choosing candidates, look for someone with character, with competence, who has capacity, who has compassion, who has a track record. You don't need to tell anybody to vote APC, PDP, QADP. It's neither here nor there. Because they then look at the people and vote for people who they believe can serve them based on certain qualities. Those are the types of things political religious institutions can help do. Teach people about their rights and responsibilities. Teach people that they have power. That as we're doing Kingdom Citizen, we're also doing Nigerian Citizen. Kingdom Citizens has its own rights and responsibilities, has things you do. If you're talking for those who are Christians, has things that you do. But you can't do that. And the same way, Nigerian citizens, being a Nigerian citizen also has its own rights and responsibilities. And we can't expect Nigeria to work by magic. It works by rules, and we must engage in that regard. And I'll end with elections on the elections on Saturday. I lost count of the number of people that sent me messages on Saturday. See you, Sorosoke generation. Where are all you people? You did not vote. And I'm like, vote for who? APC, PDP, 6, half a dozen. I mean, because today you are here, tomorrow they are there, then they will come back. Then, so all that tells you is that there are no ideological differences. So they're the same party. Very good. So let's use Lagos, for example. The most popular elections was Lagos East Senatorial District. So is it that people should have voted for APC, or they should have come out en masse and voted for PDP as a protest vote to APC, or they should have voted for AAA, whatever party that is, that did no campaign at all? I did not understand clearly what they were expecting young people to do by December 5th, because they protested in October. Suddenly by December 5th, some magic should have happened. Number one, by the time of the protest in October, no other candidates could have added themselves to the roll. So the people who had signed up to run were the people you had to vote for. Number two, Inec has not done voter registration since August 2018. August 2018. That's 2 years, over 2 years. So even for the sake of argument that people got excited with the whole NSAS thing and they wanted to engage, if you didn't have a voter's card, there's nothing you can do. So those ones are out of the equation. And then number three, who would they vote for? And what would voting at that election, in a sense, communicate as it relates to NSAS? But having said that, the need to organize cannot be overemphasized. And I dare say, please, this is not about organizing for 2023. People who call me know me. If you tell me you're inviting me to a meeting to discuss 2023, I will tell you to miss me. I don't have time, I'm not interested. Because until we start planning long-term and start thinking long-term about Nigeria, we will keep making mistakes. But the organization that I lead for this year, when Nigeria was turning 60, which by the way also shows you our capacity, Nigeria is turning 60. We've known this for 5 years. We've known this for 4 years. Same administration, we've known this for 3 years. We've known this for 2 years. We've known this for 1 year, that Nigeria was going to turn 60. It is this year that we suddenly be like, oh, we're turning 60 this year. We need a logo. And then brouhaha about creating logo. What are we going to do? Well, maybe COVID helped us, so we didn't have to think too hard. But it just shows lack of planning. But anyway, my point was that my organization didn't focus on Nigeria at 60. We started looking at Nigeria at 100. That what do we need to do over the next 40 years that Nigeria at 100, when we celebrate Nigeria's centenary anniversary, will be the type of country we will all be proud of. Now, if we don't start thinking in those terms, of which 2023 then becomes a milestone in a journey, we will keep making mistakes. Because what will happen is we will plan for 2023 like our lives depended on it. And then we will be disappointed. And all of us will now be looking, oh, we're so sad. It didn't work. And then we'll mope and cry for another 2 years and then wake up again. Okay, 2027, what are we going to do? So yeah, sorry, Pastor. I'm quite passionate, so I talk a lot. I'm really sorry for those listening. I do talk a lot about these things. I literally can talk like this for the next 2 hours, but anyway. Sorry.
Okay, Yemi, let me ask you a question. You said that we should plan for maybe the next 40 years or so, which is good. Some people are saying that in the next 40 years, if we don't do something by 2023, we may not have a nation called Nigeria or an economy to plan with at the rate things are going. So my question for you is this. Either you tell me what we should do towards 2023, whether you like it or not, or you tell me in your 40-year plan, what's your plan for 2023? Because some people are saying 2023, if you come again and you make another mistake in your choice of leader, as it were, or you don't choose right, you will not have a 2027 to look forward to at the rate at which the economy is going, the rate at which you have insecurity or lack of security, the rate at which people are being kidnapped. You know, for the first time in my life, Yemi, I think last year or the year before, I was nervous to go to Ibadan, where I have been going for the past 58 years without fear or let. You know, it crept up on me. And I started looking for security all over the place just to go down to Ibadan, where I grew up. It's never happened before. Because I think that was the year that some pastors were coming to camp and they were captured in Ijebu there. Pass through Ondo now. I see Governor Mimiko is on our platform, so I'm going to get him to say a few words soon. There's been so much, even 2-3 weeks ago, a friend of mine lost his wife. 4 women died on the way to Ondo. Car accident, which is part of the state of the nation. Either drunken driver or bad road or checkpoint or something. Women killed in that same axis. My choir members were kidnapped in Kaba the other day, 4 of them. They were put in the bush for 4 days, 3 days. I went to the police for help. The police said, where's the equipment? Where is the this? Where is the that? You know, they wanted to help. They answered my call. I even thank God that they answered my call. They called me back, they spoke to me, but they said to me more or less, you know, Oga, Joe, just, I won't say what they said, but let us just leave it at that. Because, so I just suddenly realized that, oh my boy, you're on your own. You are really on your own. And I go to prisons a lot to minister to people. There's just no rule of law. There are boys in the prison. They're there because they can't afford 1,000 naira bail or bribe for the police, awaiting trial for 5 years or 10 years on a civil offense that that anywhere else in the world you get your bail that same day, and the person who is angry with you takes you to court. But young boys, their future is taken away from them, just awaiting trial, and all manners of things in Nigeria. You need to see the traffic in our good old Lagos as our tourist attraction. It took me 4 hours yesterday to come from Ikeja to Ikoyi. Missed my midweek service. And that's normal now. It's just normal behavior. So what are we going to do? Last week, the Naira was dropping like a ton of bricks. Okay, I was trying to buy some foreign exchange. The person was calling me, buy now, in 4 hours time, the rate will change. And I saw it move from 5 something to 680 in a few days. The thing just kept moving. I don't even know what it is now because I'm traumatized. I don't want to go back and find out. So
calm down. Sorry.
What are we going to do, my dear, to this and this country that has phenomenal resource, and here we are washing our hands with spittle, and we're good to plan long term if you have long term, but really, what do we do? Where does 2023 fit into this long term plan, and what movement would we have made in 2023 that will give us a hope for 2027 and then a hope for 2032 or 2031 or whatever it is, and so on and so forth? What are the progressions that you think we will see? And then after this, I'm going to try and open the floor a little bit for those who have questions. And I want Governor Mimiko to please be on standby. I'm going to ask him to make a few comments or answer a few questions just now after Yemi has spoken.
Thank you very much, Pastor. Now, I read some of the chats and 40 years. I think the people's visceral reaction to 40 years is that it's too far. But I dare say that we should think about it in the sense of sort of vision casting. And at least for myself and my team, that's the way we see it. I lead, I'm the oldest person in my organization. I lead a team of 20-something and early 30s, people in their early 30s. And for me, it's a process of helping them anchor the work that they currently do. My team, I think one of the things, probably the best gifts I gave to them during this COVID period was forcing them to speak to a coach. Because you can't do this work on Nigeria at such a young age and it won't take a toll on you. One of my favorite employees till today is a young man who came to me a couple of years ago, who was our IT lead. I said, look, I like the work that you're doing, but I don't believe Nigeria will get better. So I'm going to quit because I can make more money working in the private sector rather than not only making small money here, but also just being generally annoyed and traumatized. But one gift that he gave me was he then went on to stay for 6 months before we found someone to replace him. And I'm eternally grateful to him for that gift. But I gave that example because dealing with Nigeria daily and literally either watching your friends leave the country, watching things that were normal one of them has seen a parent die from poor medical care. Dealing with those things mess up your mind. My mother was a trained psychologist, and one of the things I've come to talk about a lot is also that we underestimate just how mentally damaged we are as Nigerians. Because there's no way you can go through the things we go through on a daily basis, 4 hours in traffic for a 30-minute journey. I think Wole Soyinka was saying that he broke his own record of Abeokuta to Lagos, that it took him 7 hours. His initial record had been 4.5 hours. Now he has a 7-hour record of a journey that shouldn't be more than an hour. people who wake up at 4 a.m. to get to work. So we can't go through these things day after day after day and underestimate what that does to our minds. And I believe that is tied to the visceral reaction that I see in the chat against 40 years, because it just seems too far. But what happens is that if we don't plan that far, and it's not the fact that I'm planning for year 40, I'm vision casting for what I want Nigeria to be like at year 40. So is it that I want Nigeria that primary education is truly free? Is it that our tertiary educations have returned to the glory of the first generation universities? Is that what I'm vision casting? So let me take tertiary. I'm a university child, proudly so. So let me take universities, for example. I grew up on the campus of the University of Ife. Our ASU have now been on strike for 8 months. Think about that. You have a university system that has not educated one human being for 8 months, and they're still protesting because they're discussing money. Those children or those students who are not in school, what do you think is happening in their minds? So what if I vision cast in 40 years, I want to see Ife back in its old glory, where it can compete, where we have foreign, what is it called, visiting professors from other universities in the world, where people like my father could go, who was an expert in his field of public administration, world recognized, not Nigeria recognized, not continent recognized, world recognized in his field of public administration, go as a visiting professor at the University College Los Angeles or University of Chicago, wherever in the world that my father wanted to go. At the time that I was growing up, he could go. So for me, that's vision casting for 40 years. Now, step back to now. What does that mean? Very simply for me, for example, it means that the universities in Nigeria must become autonomous. They cannot be feeding from the government purse and expect to deliver 21st century quality university education. It's just not possible. The government is unable to fund universities at that level, especially because we've turned setting up universities into a political tool. Every village local government wants a university. Nobody built universities that way. And not only do we then do that, and we expect then the government to fund it. So that needs to happen. Now, what needs to happen for ASU to understand that? We need to work. We need to lobby our government. So National Assembly, again, I go back to them because they are appointed. I mean, there's, what's his name? Babajide Sanwo-Olu sits in Lagos. He can't help me with that mission. President Buhari cannot help me with that mission. But the National Assembly can change the laws that sets up our national university commissions and how universities are set up and managed in the country. But what does that all mean in real terms? Hard work. Hard work means I need to understand how NUC works. I need to understand the act that enables it. I need to understand the act that enables the Universities Act. If you look at the Unilag fiasco the last couple of weeks with the chancellor, the chairman of council fighting with the VC and all of that, how that is able to happen. So those are then the things we need to look at. Unpack the laws. What do we want the new law to look like that allows universities to be autonomous so that they can get on with educating? And then begin to work on lobbying. So I take my senator, you take your senator, we figure out the number of senators we need, House of Rep. I'm breaking it in that level of detail for us to require that this thing is hard work. And we need to just be ready to do that work. And I dare say in the 10 years that I've done this work of educating citizens on their rights and responsibilities, the middle class and the elite, I can count on two hands, individuals that have supported EIE's work. The person looking at me is one of them. So if we are not ready to support this work to get done, we will not move this needle. The work is not going to be done by aliens, my friend. Everybody on this call, the fact that you have data, you can understand me speaking English, means that you are part of Nigeria's educated elite, which also means you are part of Nigeria's problem. Because unless we are willing to put our money where our mouth is, we cannot continue to moan about these things. It is not rocket science. We just need to be willing to do the work. At what point will our comfort, when people ask me why I do the work that I do, I dare say that I do it for very selfish reasons. I deserve better. And nobody has the right to make my life difficult. I will not give you that right, and I will fight you with everything inside of me to take that power away from you. You can't. And we must get to the point where the energy we spend in discussing and agonizing and worrying is translated into actually actual work. And I agree, not everybody can do everything. We all have our roles that we play. I mean, I joke with some of my friends know me, people that call me friends that were age mates. Nobody calls me to discuss Nigeria. If you call me to whine about Nigeria, I ask you that I don't remember the last time you gave me money to do this work. So why are you calling me? Why do you suddenly have my phone number to be telling me what we should be doing? So if you want to have a conversation with me, you either are doing something or you are calling me to let's brainstorm on what we can do and how we can work, or we're discussing something to move forward. I don't do whining. I don't have capacity for whining. So unless we understand, and I say this, there are friends of mine, for example, who work in oil companies or work in multinationals. I don't expect them to come on the streets or protest or lend their names to letters that we write or whatever, because their jobs won't allow them to do that. They will lose their jobs. But I definitely expect you to transfer money for the work that I'm doing. So sit in your office and transfer money to EIE's account and everybody is okay with life. So yeah, I say all this to say, but to your point, Pastor Itwa, that the vision that we cast for 40 years is what I want to see in 40 years, and then walking it back to see how do we get there. So to your point about 2023, if we take back to my university example, after we've broken it down, we see that we need to do this and do that. And I start engaging my senator. And my senator is telling me, no, that universities must be paid for by the government. It's everybody has a right to education. So therefore, the government must pay. Madam, there's no money. We need to allow universities to charge money. Let's give bursaries. Let's give scholarships for those who can't afford it. Let's help people with loans if they want to set up an education bank. Let's find ways to allow good students to go to school, but not let students suffer. When I speak at universities, I say some of you in this hall, from the top of your head to the sole of your feet, you are wearing your school fees for 4 years in one day. Your school fees for 4 years, you are wearing it, from the weave on your head to the clothes that you are wearing. Like, how do you then expect to be able to compete with your colleague in Ghana or in Canada when your school fees for the whole year, you have won it in one day? And you're saying if they increase fees, school fees is too expensive. No, let's have conversations around how are they spending money. I spoke in Ife and I told the students to write a freedom of information request to the university to ask the monies that we pay, or the small, whatever fees they levy at them, and the money that you get from the government, let us know how you spend it. Guess what they told me? They were afraid to make that request because they didn't want to be, there was a word, not stigmatized, but they didn't just want to be under attention for the school authorities to come after them. And then we wrote. So we wrote to Ife. Ife gave us the runaround for 2+ years until we took them to court. And the day I went to deliver the court order in the university, I was making noise like a mad woman. I said, look, let me remind all of you in this registrar's office, I grew up here and this is my university. I will bring this place down if you people don't answer me. And then they started looking at me like, oh, sorry. Eventually, anyway, we got what we needed. We wrote to UI as well. UI gave us what we needed. Unilag, I think they said they'll give us this year. Because what we wanted to do is analyze the income and expenditure of the universities and be able to make a case out of it and look at, okay, this is how much they get. How much does it cost to educate a student? And so be able to have informed conversations about the cost of education. So I give all these examples anyway to say that these things take a lot of work. So to Pastor Ito's point, when we start analyzing these things and my senator says, oh, this is my policy, I then begin to say that, okay, in 2023, I will make this a campaign issue so that anybody who wants to run from my senatorial district must be somebody that believes that universities must be autonomous, believes that healthcare system, doctors, for example, should not be in the employment of the federal government, they should be employment of their state so that they can deploy as many as they need, blah, 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 blah. And then we must force these people to debate. They must have conversations. In Lagos State probably is a great example of that. From BRF's days, I think he said he participated in 11 debates. Governor Ambode did a few, Governor Sanwo-Olu did a few. So it's a culture that we built in Lagos, but it's a culture that we need to build across the country. So people get used to hearing about ideas, not on the ground of a rally where it's very noisy, but when ideas can be interrogated and we can begin to choose who we want to represent us. So there's political education, there's voter education and mobilizing. There's people who want to run for office who need to present alternatives. So if you want to run for office, go and join party today. I don't care where you join, but make sure that wherever party you join, you can sell what they are selling. And this whole party hopping thing, for me, it's huge. It speaks to lack of, in my opinion, just credibility. You cannot be in APC today, be in PDP in 6 months, then be in ACC in another 6 months. What are you looking for? Really, what are you looking for? Anyway, Pastor Ito, let me stop.
I will tell you what they are looking for. They are looking for position and power.
Exactly.
But you said it in the first place. We don't have parties. There's no ideology. It's just platforms. It's a misnomer to call them parties. Call them platforms on which people have been required to run for office. If you have any questions, let me know by show of hands so I can ask you. But I'm not going to let my brother Segun Mimiko go without his making a comment or the other. So please, my brother, unmute yourself and let's hear from you. Where is the leadership direction of Nigeria going at this time?
Well, thank you, Ito. Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing you. We can hear you loud.
Okay, thank you, Ito. And I'm pleased to be here to listen to my sister Yemi, and I think she's done very, very well. For me, she represents one of the best in her generation. The other reason I decided actually to participate is when I saw the caption about EndSARS, what next? Because for me, EndSARS was a watershed of sorts. For me, the whole EndSARS protest must be located within the totality of the Nigerian political economy. Let me put it this way. When I was governor, for example, there was a year I had the commissioner of police, the deputy commissioner, the deputy commissioner of operations and all of that. Not one of them could speak the local language. Not one of them. Now that speaks to the centrality of security architecture. I'd always say this, most of those police officers, the SARS people, apart from the fact of their training and the Nigerian environment, they also enjoyed some anonymity in the local community, which speaks to their level of reckless abandon. It also speaks to the fact that a centralized police does not have the capacity to police Nigeria. It speaks to the fact that unitary system that we run in the name of federalism cannot actually engender development. And when we look at it this way, there's general consensus on the fact that Nigeria is not doing well. It's almost a cliche to say we are endowed, we are potentially great and all of that. But why have we not done well? This is what we must interrogate. I think fundamentally, the issue is, and that has been settled way back in the 60s and the early 50s in all our constitutional conferences, that a multi-ethnic, multinational entity like Nigeria cannot do well under a unitary system. Because Nigeria is a country of so many micro-nationalities. Unless we address this issue of restructuring Nigeria. Now, what was the agreement that we had as a nation before independence? We must just go back to that. When you look at the centripetal forces trying to pull this country outside today, when you look at the level of discontent expressed in form of agitation for secession, local militia, and all of that, there's no question about the fact there are some fundamental issues that must be addressed. And for me, we must look at the structure of this country, a structure that ensures that all the micro-nationalities that constitute this nation actually believe that they belong to a nation. We must be able to build a nation out of Nigeria. The issue of EndSARS will come in. If, for example, we have a decentralized police system where perhaps the head of the SARS or something is just the guy next door in your neighborhood, there will be something that will naturally tame the type of approach that the SARS people will have to enforcement. Now, NSAS for me represented a phenomenal expression by the youth of this country who have been alienated. It's an expression of frustration with this country. Now, the way it was managed is another issue entirely. But what interests me actually is, where do we go from there? How do we leverage advantages from the consciousness that led to the NSAS protest? How do we translate this NSAS consciousness and protest into the Nigerian political process to 2023 and beyond? I'll give an example. Black Lives Matter in the United States of America. Now, that phenomenon was actually translated into actionable political points that spoke to misogyny, that spoke to racism, that spoke to all of that. And this was represented in what the political parties stood. And it was easy for those Black Lives Matters to make a choice between the two political parties. And that's why you had this unprecedented turnout in the United States election. Now, NSAS must break down its issues and build them around actionable political programs. We must get our young ones to get engaged in the political process. We must understand how fundamental restructuring will be to the progress that we are talking about. We must know what advantages restructuring will confer on our nation in terms of competitiveness, in terms of productivity, in terms of the totality of the growth of our economy. Yes, long vision, 40 years, but we must start from now. 2023, we must speak to the issue of restructuring because this is very important going forward. I think I could stop at this stage so that I don't take much of your time.
Thank you very much, my brother. That's very clear. I don't know if Yemi has any responses, but one of the things I like either you or her to speak to is, how do we get the government of the day to take this issue of restructuring very seriously, and even political reform and constitutional reform? But I think one of the questions Governor Mimiko sort of alluded to was, what next after NSAS, Yemi? What should these NSAS young people, what should they do now? How can they turn all this work and all this loss of lives into some kind of movement or political advantage that can help people?
Already started. As I said, they're organizing. I mean, there's a youth party that exists because, I mean, youth is not an ideology by any stretch of the imagination, but it provides a resonating sort of rallying cry that we're all in this together. So there are political parties being set up. My encouragement to the people I'm dealing with is not to also splinter all over the place, but to ensure that their values are clear. So you are organizing around values rather than the fact that you're 22 years old. Number one. Number two, there's also a clear understanding to work across socioeconomic divides. So there are people who are trying to do a lot more in terms of community work. There are people who are strategizing around even running for office at local government level, state house of assembly level, to have impact in their community. And above all, really just education, finding different platforms. There's an electoral college NG that has sprung up in the last 1 month, teaching people, they call it Politocracy 101, just the basics of politics. You have, what's her name now? Joyce Daniel, who spent a series, I think last month as well in November, every Sunday on YouTube teaching about the Constitution, just so people are aware. So what next? I'd say education, And I'd say organizing, really, if I want to put it down into those two buckets.
Thank you very much. I think we'll take another question. Tayo Motosho, she's been raising her hand. I think she's speaking all the way from Atlanta. Very, very quickly, we want to take a few questions, and I would like us to finish in the next 10, maximum 15 minutes. We've already overshot our time. So my dear sister, 30-second quick question.
Thank you, Pastor Ito. Mine is not actually a question, it's an intervention. And I must commend my dear sister Yemi for very, very salient points she made. But the thing that draws my attention most is that of servant-leader relationship. The servant-leader relationship. We're still talking about restructuring and talking of equity, fairness in restructuring. If our leaders get to realize that they've been voted in to serve us, then they will know the need to respect the rule of law. Why don't we have people talking like Yemi is doing? Because we don't have freedom of press. We don't have freedom of speech. We don't have freedom of expression. Yes, I'm in Atlanta. I was watching television yesterday, CNN, and I saw Don Lemon. I saw Chris Cuomo challenging the president, telling Donald Trump to leave the stage. The stage is over. They were talking to him as if they were talking to age mates. And I asked myself as a TV journalist, could I talk to my president like that? Could Bisi Olatilo talk to his president like that? Mojima Konjola, Eugenia Abu, John Momo. All these are my colleagues. If we do, I beg you, by the time we're done with that interview, some people are out there waiting to take us to jail, waiting to incarcerate us. But this is our basic human rights. Our children that went to protest, talking of NSAS, they did a beautiful, responsible protest. I live in Lagos. I'm just in the States visiting. I'm coming back pretty soon. Beautiful protest at the Lekki end. We were watching it until those in power came and started shooting at them. When we're talking of obedience to rule of law, I am saying that everybody must obey the rule of law. Our leaders are not above the rule of law. Ministers, governors, presidential aides, senators, name it. They must also observe the rule of law. It's not just for us, the led. The leaders must actually show the essence of the rule of law. They must comply first for everybody to say, oh, we have beautiful leaders. We have responsible leaders. We have leaders that care. We have leaders that feel for us, that have blood and water flowing through their veins. But what do we have in the Nigeria scenario? We have leaders that even if you question them, you must be careful in the way you frame your question so that they don't get offended. Yemi said earlier on that we say, Your Excellencies, Honorable, believe you me, you want to interview a governor or a minister and you don't use that acronym, he might choose not to even answer your question or give you attitude. The high time we started letting them know that we elected them to serve us, not to boss it over us, the better.
Thank you very
much, Pastor Ait.
Thank you. I think this is a one solid takeaway from this platform, and for those who are listening, almost 200 of us here, that it is time, like Yemi also alluded, that we need to speak and speak truth to power. In fact, in the US also, there was a police officer who told Donald Trump off, and he was a uniform wearing police officer. And he was being interviewed, I think, by one of these journalists. And he told Donald off and told him he was misbehaving and he was badly behaved and blah, blah, blah. And he was wearing a uniform. And nothing happened to him. He didn't lose his job. So that's part of what we're saying. Freedom of expression, freedom of having people say what they want, the ability to speak truth to power, and the humility from our leaders to hear the truth and accept it and don't think that everything that is spoken is a threat against their position. What are they in the position for anyway? Why are they holding on to one position? Why is it so personal? So that's one takeaway we must all take away from this place. Yemi said that if you continue to allow your worker to misbehave every day, he will take it for granted and he will continue to misbehave because there's no consequence. And we, the citizenry, have tolerated too much from people that we put in there to serve us and to make life better for us. So we need to begin to watch out for that. The second thing Yemi said, which is very, very true, and which I have also spoken about, is that there must be qualifications for leadership. You know, I said it the other day that a Chinese man was saying that George Bush could never become president of China. It's not possible because there are qualifications for leadership. You must have shown competence, you must have shown character, you must have shown ethical values, you must have shown visionary leadership, you must have shown resilience, you must have shown background, you must have shown that you've done it before at different levels before we can then say to you, come and be boss over 200 million innocent souls. There must be qualification for leadership at different levels. But Bumi Lawson, I think you have a question or a comment. Let me take yours very quickly. Then we take one or two more, and then we must respectfully shut down. My auntie, Mrs. Adegoro, is on the platform. Auntie, God bless you. It's always a joy to see you at almost 90, if not 90 plus, still being part of this conversation. That plan for 40 years, they are planning for you. That's what Yemi is planning. So she's planning for you at 130 to see the future she's planning. Anyway, Bumi Lawson, please let me hear you very quickly. Is she still on the platform? Bumi Lawson, if she's not there, can I hear from my brother, Dr. Niro Fafora? He's in California and he's been watching. He could even be in Lagos, who knows? I think Olu were down.
Amen.
My brother, go ahead, please. Can
Yes,
you hear me?
I can hear you. I thank you, Itua, for the invitation, and I thank my sister Yemi for the great discussion. I'm a very optimistic person, and I think Yemi's projection of 40 years can happen in 10 years. If we all do what we need to do. The truth of the matter is that if you're talking about what next after NSAS, everybody is talking about NSAS as if it's a youth thing. No, it's not a youth thing. It's an everybody thing. So we must all go back to our various organizations and let the spirit of NSAS begin to flow seriously. For example, many people I see here represent more than everybody is almost a corporate individual. Let me talk about the church in particular. I'm a member of a very huge international church. And so what happens next, as far as I'm concerned, is for me to go back into my church and make sure that the spirit of NSAS continues to reign, because I've discovered that most of the big organizations in Nigeria are representative of the mediocrity we have nationally. You'll be amazed to see that what is happening in Nigeria in particular is happening in virtually all the organizations. So it's not just of the issue of talking about politicians. No, it's talking about you and I. We must go back to our roots. We must all go back and reevaluate the way we do business. We must go back and reevaluate what we accept in our organizations, whether it is spiritual or otherwise, because it is very, very messy at a very, very foundational level. And the Bible says, if the foundation were destroyed, what will righteous do? So if you and I, we are intellectual, thank God for that. We are not the one we are not begging for bread, thank God for that. But we are compromising lots. We should stop the compromise at every level. And that is the spirit of NSAS. I yield the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, my brother. Thank you for that comment. I think it's added to our takeaways that we should all go back to our various communities and constituencies and begin to speak and preach a new gospel, a new way of doing things, a new way of participation, a new way of getting involved. a new way of making sure that what has happened in Nigeria over the past 60 years definitely does not repeat itself. We must really, as far as I'm concerned, face this issue of 2023 and see what everybody can do to ensure that we get the right kind of people in some form of leadership, or improved kinds of people in some forms of leadership at one stage or the other, and not wait until we're presented. Like Yemi said, the elections recently, we had no choice. We're just presented with whosoever people wanted, and we then couldn't decide what we wanted. Let me take a question quickly from sometimes my co-host on this platform, Pastor Sonny Enebi. Sonny, very quickly, and then I'll invite Yemi for her final comments, and then we'll close for today and be back same time next week by God's grace, where we will be having another set of conversations. So Yemi, just give us 2 minutes, and Sonny, make your comments 30 seconds. We need to close now.
Okay, thank you very much, Pastor. I will just take it easy. Yemi, thank you very much for that very enlightening talk and stuff you give to us. We virtually have the same vision, but part of the challenge we have, going back to the fixed politics that you spoke about earlier. When we train all these people that we are talking about, and we're going to release them to go into the same system that we already operate, the question is, how do we insulate them and ensure that they live the values that we expect to see in politics? So what your organization is doing, I dare say we have similar values, and that's the same exact thing that we are also pursuing at doing. Part of what we are looking at is how do we get them to align, and how do we hold them accountable? Because if they go through your school of policy and governance and they join APC or PDP, they will be in the minority in those parties, and there's every tendency that they could be swallowed up, and whatever we have put in them will not be realized on the political stage in Nigeria. Have you thought about that deeply, and what do you intend to do if that happens?
Yemi, you've heard Sonny's question. I'm going to have you take it with your final comments so that we can bring the show to a close, or the session to a close. I have a question for you. If you are president of Nigeria in 2023, what would you do? How would you drive and run this country? In the meantime, I want to thank my friend Johnny Moyo for being on this platform. Afolabi Ajidaun, please let me have your address so I can send those books to you. Habiba Balogun, I saw you hiding somewhere. Erabo Emopae, my brother, God bless you. And a host of others. Don't let me mention any more names. Yemi, let's have your comments. Sonny's question, my question, and whatsoever you wish to say to close this session. Thank you very much for coming.
Let me start by apologizing. I actually have to go because I have a 7:30 and I need to get in the car. But otherwise, I would love to stay and to answer questions. To me, Abika, Auntie, my partner cheerleading squad, Sister Ronke, thank you. I see you guys. Pastor Sonny, to your question, I think there's power in numbers, and I think I'll use President Obasanjo's administration as an example. Had Obi Ezekwesili, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Nuhu Ribadu, El-Rufai, who formed themselves as a mini cult within the administration and were able to feed off each other and sort of keep the values at that time, I would say, that they thought were important and they hold dear. You can't insulate people within a political structure. I think that's what I believe, and that's why the power is in the numbers. Ultimately, I firmly believe that people give out what is inside of them. It's not that you get into government and you drink some kind of water and your values suddenly change. We say that we're tempted by either money, power, or sex. So it's not that government changes you. It's when you get into power that you see what people truly are. And the idea is that you train people. Not everybody that you train will go in. Not everybody that you train will do what you want to do, but we must do something. And that's the way we do it. Now, we're training people at this level of their lives, but it also speaks to this whole notion of all of us getting involved in training people from nursery school, primary school, secondary school, to understand service, to understand there must be consequences for bad action, to understand there's shame in doing things wrongly, and to understand that instead of celebrating people who are walking in a particular direction, stealing money, whatever it is, we celebrate people who work hard and put people before themselves. Pastor Ito, to your question, if I were president of Nigeria, what would I do? I won't be president of Nigeria because I will not run. And they don't come and give people in their house. If they came to give me at home, but since it's not going to happen, I won't be president of Nigeria. But as we close to the comments that people have had, I think Sister Bumi had the question as well. How do you get more people doing? I think we just need to keep talking to people, keep using the platforms that we have. Again, I cannot overemphasize enough how religious institutions provide a huge opportunity, because people listen to their religious leaders. We've seen it, we know it, we joke about it, we laugh about it, but we see it. Therein lies the power. When your pastor is able to tell you to drink poison and you drink it and you die, or your pastor is able to tell you that sleep with me so your demons can be out of it, or so from the spectrum of the bad to the very good, your pastor tells you to pray and fast and read your Bible and you see the results, or your imam, we see it work. Religious institutions have power, not only because of the words that they speak, but because it's premised on hope. That's what they're selling. They're selling you the ability to hope in something that you cannot see, that you cannot touch, that's able to make your life better. It's the same way they can translate that narrative and that power into getting you to hope into a country that is 40 years from now will be what you necessarily cannot see physically, but you can see in your mind's eye, and you're then willing to work towards it. Again,
Adiolu, please switch off your mic.
Thank you very much for having me, Pastor Ito. It's really been a joy. And I will be calling you. I gave you a bit of a holiday, but don't worry, I'll be back.
Call me, let's talk, let's sit, and you must run, you can't dodge out of it. That's what people say, I won't run. Then who will run? You have to run, Yemi.
No, you're the one that teach the thing, know your calling. My calling is not to run, my calling is to make trouble. And I'm doing it very well. Nobody
can stop you from making trouble. Okay, Yemi, keep making trouble, and the trouble will become positive progress for Nigeria. In Jesus' name, Nigeria will be great again. God has blessed this nation. He will continue to bless this nation, and he will put things in the right places for all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being part of this conversation today. We really need to go right now. We will be back same time next week, 5 o'clock, with yet another very, very interesting discourse that you must all be part of. Thank you. If you have any suggestions, any ideas, anybody you think we need to bring to this platform, please send to us via email, pastorituapa@yahoo.com, pastorituapa@gmail.com. I will be happy to bring that person on at some stage as we make progress. We want ideas, we want a roadmap, we want a direction, we want a sense of participation. We want involvement of everybody in Nigeria to really make Nigeria great again. We don't want any more of this corruption and selfishness in leadership. We want really selfless people to come and help this country achieve its potential. And I know they are out there, and I know that we will find them. And I have a feeling that you might be one of them. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a very good evening and Merry Christmas in
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you.
Bless you, Pastor I.
God bless you, Pastor.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Pastor. Thank you very much,
Pastor.
sir.
Good job.
Hello, dear. God
Pastor
bless you.
I.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pastor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor.
God bless you.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Yemi. Thank you, Pastor.
How are you? God bless you. Sonny, you're enjoying life. Oh.
Yemi, you have done well.
God bless you.
Pastor,
I greet you.
Good job.
Articulated. I'm glad for you.
I enjoyed it.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Debola, thank you.
Toxic.
Debola, thank you. God bless you. Thank you so much. Alaba, God bless you. Happy birthday in advance. in Phoenix, thank you. Francis Madojemu, how are you? Auntie Eka, good to see you. Borebobo, good to see you. God bless you. God bless you. Borebobo, good to see you. Thank you so much. God bless you. Oluwatoyin, so much.
I haven't seen Mrs. Judy Peters. I don't know.
Okay.
Are you ready for us? Thank you. Oloro, the great. Blow your whistle. Blow your whistle. Oloro, blow your whistle. God bless you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
This was a
God bless
fantastic
you.
session.
Oh, thank you. Mama Mrs. Ajari, God bless you. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Rosemary, thank you. VT, thank you. Alaba, thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for the session.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you. Benny, good to see you. Dolapo, good to see you. Gabriel Uwosho, thank you. Namdi, thank you. God bless you all. Thompson, thank you. Tunde Onokoya, thank you. Tunde, you need to call me. Tunde, you need to call me. Joe Dede, thank you.
Well done, Pastor Itwa. God bless you.
God bless you too. Thank you. Aisha, good to see you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Chua. God bless you.
God bless you. Temi Tokwe, God bless you. Thank you. Toib, you're hiding there. God has seen you. God bless you. Call me, okay, Toib. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Kunle, thank you. God bless you all. Good night. Wale Onolapo, thank you so much. Taiwa Deneko, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Chindo, thank you. Thank you.